Welcome to the virtual Kentucky Tree Farmer of the Year Field Day. I'm Billy Thomas, an extension forester at the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources Extension. And as you can see, we've got a great group with us today. Normally, we would be out on some beautiful farm here in Kentucky greeting you in person, but this year is a little bit different. So we're happy to have the virtual Tree Farmer of the Year Field Day. We have a number of different folks. I just want to introduce some of the groups that you're going to be hearing from today. Again, I'm Billy Thomas at UK Department of Forestry and Natural Resources. Also have with me Dr. Jacob Muller. Jacob's a faculty extension member here, and he's been a big part of some of these videos you're going to be seeing here in just a little bit as well. We also have a representative from the Kentucky Natural Resources Conservation Service, Justin Coffey. Justin, glad to have you with us today. Also have a couple of folks from the Kentucky Division of Forestry, Mr. Bill Knott. Bill is one of the foresters that works for the division. He's a chief forester up there, but he's got a lot of experience working one-on-one with landowners as well. Also with the Division of Forestry, we have Ms. Pam Snyder. Hi, Pam, how are you? Pam oversees the kind of the forest management section here in Kentucky for the Kentucky Division of Forestry. We also have Mr. Bob Bauer. Bob is the executive director of the Kentucky Forest Industries Association. He's also the assistant chair to the Kentucky Tree Farm Committee. Speaking of the committee, we also have Mr. Doug McLaren. Doug McLaren is the current chairman of the Kentucky Tree Farm Committee. He wears another hat. He's also the president of the Kentucky Woodland Owners Association. Behind the scenes, we have Miss Renee Williams down there. She is our information specialist here at the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources and helps make all this stuff happen. So Renee, thanks for all you do. We also have Miss April Wilhoit. April is a county agent in Fleming County. She's the Agriculture and Natural Resources Extension Agent in Fleming County. April, glad to have you with us today. All right, and then our guest of honor, Dr. Herb Lloyd. Herb is here representing the family, if you will, the Lloyd family the Lloyd family Woodland Reserve Tree Farm up in Fleming County, and we're going to be hearing from Dr. Lloyd a lot. Dr. Lloyd, congratulations again on winning this award. We're glad that you can be part of this virtual event with us.
Thank you.
All right, so folks, normally we start off these Tree Farm of the Year field days with a quick presentation, if you will, of the winner receiving the award. It gives us a chance to kind of celebrate and acknowledge all the efforts that go into this. And as you'll see, Dr. Lloyd and the family have done a lot of work over the years on this property, and it is really kind of a showcase, if you will. And it's a showcase for many reasons, and I hope we'll get into them. But one of the things that I think is really strong about this property and this tree farm family is the family involvement, and I hope you'll get a sense of that a little bit as we go through this program. So the way this is going to work today, folks, is we've got we're going to have a few opening remarks from some of these different organizations and groups, kind of giving you an overview of what they do and how they might work with you on your own property, and then we will show a series of videos. Like I mentioned earlier, Dr. Muller and I were able to go out into the woods and meet with Dr. Lloyd a few weeks ago, or a month ago, I guess, and we filmed some of these stops, and we were able to kind of capture some of the forest management that's going on that property. So we'll show those, we'll introduce them, we'll show these short little videos, and then we'll have a chance for y'all to ask questions and kind of discuss what you're seeing in this. And I'll ask all of our cadre of professionals on here to chime in as appropriate. If there's something that we need to kind of get across to the group, let's please make sure we don't miss that opportunity. All right, so without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and show the video of the award ceremony that took place a few weeks ago, and you'll see a couple of faces that you recognize. They're just introduced, Doug McLaren and Dr. Herb Lloyd. So I will go ahead and pull that video up now, and we'll watch that, and we'll be back with you in just a moment.
Okay, welcome everyone. We are here this year. Actually, 2019 was the year of. What we normally do here at the Kentucky Tree Farm program is we ask for nominations for Tree Farmer of the Year, and the way it works, we're always 1 year behind. So this is the 2019 year Tree Farmer of the Year, and we are in the on the property of the Hutton Lloyd Tree Farm, family farm.
That's the DBA. It's now HL Land.
Oh, okay.
HL Land Holdings LLC.
Okay, very good.
It's the parent organization.
All right. And it is run by the family. There's a lot of people involved, which we certainly appreciate and enjoy having family involved in this. Dr. Lloyd has been involved in tree farming for a number of years, and he actually took the path of the original first professional forester here in the United States, and that was Gifford Pinchot. Back in the late 1800s, there was no forestry schools here in the country, and Gifford Pinchot actually went to Germany and learned all about forestry over there. And the same thing for Dr. Lloyd. When he was doing some practice, he was over in Germany and lived with a family who took him out and showed him the forest of Germany. And as time went on, he came back, continued his practice here in Kentucky, and what he did is he picked up on the concept of wanting to be involved in forest management. And so for that reason, here we are many, many years later, and Dr. Lloyd and family have been nominated and elected as Tree Farmer of the Year. So Dr. Lloyd, we would like to present this to you, this particular plaque, so that all can be seen that there is a great deal of work involved in tree farming. It's very similar to other agricultural products. The only difference is here in the state of Kentucky with hardwoods, we're dealing with trees that are probably 80 to 100, 120 years in age. And it's a long-term process, and we appreciate that you have taken all this time and effort to be involved in tree farming. So congratulations on behalf of the Kentucky Tree Farm System and the National Tree Farm System. We present to you the 2019 Kentucky Tree Farmer of the Year.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. I really appreciate it. It's been a labor of love. It's been 40 years now. The farm will be 40 years old in 31st of March this coming year. But there's been a huge number of people and institutions involved, and I'm very grateful for them. Some of the original people from Germany and foresters here at the University of Kentucky when I first got started. And then through all this time, all the various components of the timbering and logging industry and the environmental industry, the ecology industry. We try to solve or look at 4 issues here: the commercial timbering, commercial growth, but we're also very interested in the ecology and the watershed and the recreational uses and the wildlife. So it all kind of comes together for us, and we've been able to participate in a lot of the programs that have been offered from the National Resources Conservation Service, and also things that have been sponsored by the Kentucky Forest Industries Association and the University of Kentucky. We're very grateful for all of the logging community and the sawmill community that helps support and helps fund a lot of what we're able to do because we're able to sell the product. So I accept the award for the family with great gratitude and suggest that we go ahead and put this on the barn door right here, so all we'll see when people come to buy Christmas trees this year, they'll see the sign.
Very good.
Okay. Could you hold it up like that, Tom?
I will be more than happy.
Okay. We can get our...
It is official.
So there we go.
It is official.
Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome.
All right, so you all didn't get to experience that live with us, but it was great to get out there and meet with Dr. Lloyd and Doug. We'll hear from you all in the Tree Farm Committee a little bit later, but big shout out to the Kentucky Tree Farm Committee for hosting this award each year and recognizing a winner. To kind of keep the show rolling along, we're going to start off with some opening remarks. So Dr. Lloyd, I've got a small slideshow that we put together with you here, and I can go ahead and pull that up, but I'd like to turn it over to you for some opening remarks.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Am I coming across okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Okay. So I want to, first of all, thank everybody who's here in attendance. There's many people who have been associated with the farm, and it's been a very nice group of people to be able to experience and to learn from over all of these years. So I'm very appreciative that you're here setting in now to see the farm and how it's come along and matured after 40 years. This slide is put together by Billy, but it's got the family, it's got the name of our business currently. It's Lloyd Family Woodland Reserve Tree Farm. That's really expresses a lot of how we approach it. It's always been intended that it would be seen as a woodland reserve, although there's several product lines that go with it now, but the main core is the woodland reserve. And the fact that the family has become involved so much helps bring about the need to have a name that represents it. So this pulls together a couple entities. The business name for the main part of it is HL Land Holdings LLC. That's in the background, but some of you have heard of it before as Hutton and Lloyd Tree Farm, and so other names along those lines. It's been a number of different business entities too that I've marched through over the years. So let's see the next slide. So Billy asked me to do a little bit of history of the farm. So I think it's kind of interesting, the initial story. I had a program collapse on me in 1980. I was due to go into another medical program in a residency. It was a startup program, and it was having trouble. I had trouble with this funding, and eventually it got shuttered. And so that left me without anything to do at the moment. And so I had kicked the idea around, and my brother Jim, he said, "Oh well, I'm going to try to raise some walnuts. You could give some thought to something like that if you wanted to." The reason he kind of thought about that was because our family background goes back into logging and not forestry, but rather the logging end of it. My grandfather on my mother's side was a sawmill owner. My family on my father's side had always been in the agrarian society. They logged everything and built everything that they saw, or built from what they saw themselves. So it was embedded in the family. So for Jim to mention that seemed to be appropriate. But it did get me started on a pathway. And then it also brought in the fact that I had been stationed in the military in Germany in what's called the Eifel area. And it's rich in forestry. I was lucky enough to live with a German family for the 2 years I was there, and the youngest male in the family, his name was Wilhelm. It was a forester, and he handled both the forestry and the hunting in a large reserve in almost on the Belgian border of Germany. So that's where I really kind of got the inspiration, or the desire. But it really became a reality under Pete Kovalik. I think Pete's listening in. I really have a huge amount of admiration and appreciation for Pete, because when my brother had suggested walnuts and I started asking questions, the people I talked to said, "Oh, you absolutely have to go see Pete Kovalik." So he was in the Department of Forestry at UK at the time. So I went and talked to him, and that started the whole chain of events. But it lasted over about 9 months. And every time I would get a new idea or try something new, I would come back to Pete, because I was having trouble affording small pieces of land that were really high and expensive in the bluegrass. And so I kept going further and further out. And eventually I ended up in the bluegrass knob areas in Fleming County. And the purchase was really easy, because I had been thinking, if I'm going to grow walnuts, I'll be an absentee landowner, since I'm a physician and basically involved in medical practice. I said, so I need to have a place where people aren't going to steal trees or timber. And so I I thought I need a valley. It needs to have steep sides, and it needs to have a single entrance. So on about the 1st of March in 1981, myself and another person had gone to check this place out. And I mean, it happened in seconds. We turned in, looked up this valley. It had steep edges to it, had no other entrance except an entrance that came across a dam, and had a gate on it. The dam had a 40-acre lake that it blocked up. So I said, this is it. I don't have to look any further. And there was no negotiating the price. The guy said, you know, you take it or leave it. You know, I'm not offering any other prices. I said, it's fine, I'll take it. So that started the whole thing. And then over the years, it was the development of product lines. At first, I went to Pete and I said, you know, about this property now, it's more than what I was thinking about, but the price was right per acre. And I said, what could I do? I can't raise walnuts on all of this. There's not that much bottom land. And he said, well, you could raise Christmas trees. So that started the Christmas trees. And then the Christmas trees, people came out and they wanted us to dig their trees. I thought, I don't want to dig the trees. These were meant to be cut and used as Christmas trees. Well, of course, you can't steer a guest, a horse, how do they say, a guest horse or whatever, anyway, in the mouth. And I said, here these people are coming out and wanting to buy my product, and I'm telling them no. I said, that's stupid. I got to start developing this product line. So I did. And then we had the timber, and then there was the lake for fishing. And then we put together a hunting contract over the years. And then now we have events where people where weddings and a foot race called the Hot 100 takes place, not this year because of COVID, but and then there's a lot of recreation. So we've been able to put together product lines over the years, but there's been some stumbles along the way. It's been problematic. And for anybody who wants to undertake something like this, you'll have your own that you're either very wise to not run into or maybe luck as part of it. But yeah, I took some blind alleys. I tried to start up some product lines that really were unadvisable and expensive. So instead of solving my financial problems, it just made them worse. So those stumbles, and then we had the recession in 2008, 9, 10, 11. I thought we really stumbled through that, but we made it. Thanks to the people who worked for me. The one fellow was able to take over the nursery product line, and I just said, I can't support that part of it anymore. I'll worry about getting the debt that we had at the time paid down. If you can just take care of that. And then he got another job too, also driving a school bus. So between the two of us, and then the lady who ran the office, Marla Jackson, Jimmy Hall was my right-hand man at the time, we were able to make it through that period of time. And when we came out of it, then the demand for nursery products came back, and we started being able to recover. But this last part about the notion of a woodland reserve banding together the family members, that's really been sort of a central theme that brings us together. Because everybody's got the idea now that we can do this, and it's been what it's been about all along. But it's taken a while for everybody to realize the potential and all of that. So now it really does help bind us together. You can go to the next slide, Billy. So Billy asked me to kind of touch somewhat on our management objectives, and I have to say that the central runs are the ones I've listed here. The first one is to maintain a track, create and maintain a track sufficiently large enough to justify sort of broad scale management. And I think that's really important. It's something that if people want to talk to in this meeting, we can. The other high points that I've touched is I wanted to see that the woodlands, a lot of the abuses were from prior. I don't think we called them abuses back 100 years ago because it was a natural way of dealing with things. But now we look back at them as things that are worth correcting. And so the things that I've focused on are trying to deal with the high grading that had occurred over the years. The fires that had been set at the time and left a lot of fire burn in the trees. The fences that you still find in the trees, not anymore because we've been cutting a lot of that out. And the grazing that had occurred. But also there's been a lot of fields that have regenerated since the migration of people from the land in the during the war and in the 50s and such during the Second World War. It left a lot of fields that started regenerating. Unfortunately for us, it's been more in native species. Now, in other parts of Kentucky, like northern Kentucky, it's tended to be invasive species. But that's why I haven't listed invasives. We have them, but we just don't have them in a really huge quantity compared to what they are in other areas. And they're not so dominating on the scene. But when I see them, I do address them. So those are the main things we're trying to correct. The primary, I think, the tool we use is clear cuts when appropriate, thinnings, timber stand improvements, incorporating the NRCS projects. A lot of times they go just along with promoting wildlife. They also help promote these projects as well, or these goals as well. But we've developed a tendency for multiple use philosophy, commercial timbering, the ecology, recreations, aesthetics, the watershed. We're fortunate to have almost a complete watershed of a creek called Knob Lick on our property, which is a point of joy, but it's also a point of responsibility. So that's how we direct our management activities. We also, I should have put these in a little bit different order, but also a big part of what our objective has been is developing sustainable business practices. And I pointed out, I took some blind alleys in the past, so get your hands slapped or your wrist slapped and you learn. So it goes on to trying to use those experiences to develop more sustainable practices. But the other big one has been trying to create generational longevity. We use limited liability corporation as a tool to do that. It doesn't require, but it's not mandated, but or required that you write up an operational agreement. But it's a really huge tool for this type of thing about how you're going to run your organization and the government of it, so to speak. So that's also been a big objective, is to create that generational longevity. And fortunately, I think we have done that. Can you bring me to the next slide, Billy? So these are the partner people that have been involved in organizations. You can read them. I'll just go through them a lot. Family and spousal support has been huge. Has been absolutely necessary. This is not a unilateral type of project. American Tree Farm System, Kentucky Forest Industries, the Kentucky Woodland Owners, the National Woodland Owners, the UK Department of Forestry. I thought I put down here the Kentucky Division of Forestry, but maybe I didn't get it written down for the person who put together the slide for me. Cooperative Extension Services, the Natural Resources, or NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service. A lot of the contracts that we have on the property that we've been working on all come through the NRCS. We've had state foresters involved, the Kentucky Division of Foresters involved, and the consultant foresters. Loggers have been great. They have a hard life to have to live and make a business out of these things. So it's great when we see a logger come out and do a really fabulous job on the property and follow all the BMPs and all the best management practices. So a big hat off to them. And then the sawmills who buy our product, that money gets turned back in a lot to the forest practices, the Kentucky Tree Association. And then I always want to take a hat off to the elected officials, because they're out there too. They're not on the screen today, but those people have a lot of different priorities that they have to march to, and yet they're still able to support the programs and realize how important the forest is and what a great resource it is in Kentucky, and help support the programs that provide contracts for us through the natural resources, et cetera. So I want to be sure those people are recognized. Can you go to the next one? This was the last slide that he had asked I talked about a little bit, and that's how the whole family is involved. And basically, everybody has a job description is probably one of the better techniques, but it's becoming more and more true now, because we've been fortunate enough to recently have reached a point where there's no more debt on the business or the property or whatever, which gives us a whole new lease on life. And the capability for myself to step away as being the primary manager. We have what we call an executive management committee where we have basically the 5 lines in the family, 5 family lines who come together to each have 1 vote in that committee and then make decisions. So that's where the real operation exists. But but it's all defined in an operation agreement. We're currently revising that, but that's our biggest challenge right now is to transition from this last 40 years to envision another 30 or 40 years downstream and how people will interact and operate, and whether we keep all the product lines or spin them off, just how all that works. So that's where we happen to be right now. And I think it'll turn out to be interesting as we create that future. So anyway, thank you very much, Billy, for displaying the slides for me.
Well, Dr. Lloyd, I just wanted to thank you again for all of your work and the family's work. I know you all put a lot of time and effort into caring for this property. And part of what we're hoping to do today is inspire others to take care of their property as well. And you mentioned a lot of the organizations that are available to work with landowners on a daily basis, if you will. And if you don't mind, I'd like to introduce a few of them and kind of let them say a little bit about what they have to offer to landowners here in Kentucky. And I think we've got first up Mr. Bill Knott with the Kentucky Division of Forestry. Hey, Bill, how are you?
Doing well. Thank you, Billy.
Tell us a little bit about, the Division of Forestry and how you all work with woodland owners.
Okay. So, I'm the chief forester here in Moorhead, and you'll cover 20 counties in this area, including Fleming County, where the tree farm is located. KDF folks have been heavily involved here over, you could say, the past few decades, really. Number of years. There have been a lot of foresters come and go through here that have provided a lot of technical assistance here to the Lloyd family farm. Some of those, have involved, writing the stewardship plans. That's like the initial step, in the management process to managing forest land. And once that plan is written, about once every 10 years, that plan will get updated just to keep track with how things are changing over time with the forest land. Some other activities that we've been involved with here have been, marking timber for some of the timber sales that have gone on out here. Also planning and marking the numerous, timber stand improvement projects that have gone on out here. The farm is also designated as a stewardship forest. That's a state designation. So once every 5 years, there's a forester that comes out and does a recertification on that. And then all of our foresters at Moorhead, we are trained and certified as tree farm inspectors. So we're involved with that aspect as well. Anytime that this tree farm comes up for reinspection, one of us will come out here and do that type of work for them. I do want to mention, one of the foresters that spent pretty much his whole career here, Kevin Galloway. He spent just over 27 years as a service forester in the same area. And that's kind of unheard of. A lot of folks, start off one area and kind of jump around throughout the career. But Kevin, he stayed in this area his entire career and spent a lot of time out here on the Lloyd farm, and walked a lot of miles and did a lot of great work out here. So really, definitely wanted to mention that. Now, as far as what we offer to other woodland owners across the state, the biggest thing that we do is our forest stewardship program. And Billy, I'll have you share a link to our stewardship portion of our website there, if anyone's interested in that. And there's also the stewardship application that Billy will share.
And I'll go ahead and pull those up, Bill. I shared in the chat pod, folks, a link to this page that I'm now sharing with you all. All right, Bill, they should be able to see that.
All right. So basically what the stewardship program involves, that initial step For anybody that owns 10 acres or more of forest land, you can fill out a stewardship application and return it uh, to the correct office. We've got 6 different branch offices across the state, and they'll put you on a list and eventually have a forester meet up with you at the property to get things started. And that's the crucial part of beginning your forest management is getting that stewardship plan written. It kind of sets a baseline for what the current conditions of your woodland are. And it also, by working with that forester, they'll give you recommendations on how to manage that property. And it's going to be solely based on, your overall goals for managing the property. You may have short-term goals of, maybe wanting to generate some income off of some timber sales, or long-term goals, to kind of, reboot the forest and, correct some of those problems of the past, like, Dr. Lloyd mentioned the high grading, fire damage, past grazing. Those are things that certainly take a lot of time. But as we've seen out here on the Lloyd family farm, if you do the right management steps on the property, you can certainly turn around the productivity and greatly improve, the growth of the timber, which is as a forester, that's great to see. I absolutely love seeing that sort of thing. And to finish up, I just want to say, we work a lot in conjunction with all these other agencies, with the NRCS, the county conservation districts, UK Extension, private consulting foresters, and it's really a great team that we have to work with and to help provide this service to the landowners.
All right. Well, Bill, thank you very much. And folks, I'll remind you, if you all have questions for Bill or any of our other speakers, you can use the chat pod and we will try to respond to those as quickly as possible. Bill, I had a chance to work for the Kentucky Division of Forestry a long time ago, and I really value the organization and all the great men and women out there that are doing so great work for our landowners and supporting them. And as Bill mentioned, there are a number of agencies and organizations that are out there to support woodland owners. And in my current job is kind of trying to educate landowners about that. They are often surprised about how much support's available. Not only can we provide you with technical support to help you manage your woodlands, but sometimes there's also financial support available to help cover some of those conservation practices. So up next, I'd like to bring up, if I could, Mr. Justin Coffey. Justin is representing the Kentucky Natural Resources Conservation Service today. And Justin, glad to have you with us.
Yeah, glad to be here. Can you hear me well?
We can hear you great. And so Justin, you all do so much. As Bill mentioned, NRCS is an important cog in this wheel of trying to get good woodland management on the ground.
Yeah, we're glad to be a part of this virtual webinar, and congratulations to the Lloyd family on their achievements. And you guys wanted me to speak a little bit about some NRCS programs and stuff, so I'm going to try to share some things I have here on my screen.
And I'll remind folks, as Justin's pulling that up, is that there are NRCS offices spread out across the state. So regardless of where you're at in Kentucky, there is an NRCS office that's assigned to cover your county.
All right, are you seeing my good one or a presentation?
No, I'm not seeing anything right now, Justin.
Okay, how about nothing yet?
No. Yeah, you might, when you hit that little green share button, you might have to pick the right monitor. A great thing about technology is it's wonderful when it works.
That's right.
Yeah.
Can you see anything now?
No, you're not sharing anything. There. Uh-oh, something's coming. All right, we're seeing your not the show, but the actual PowerPoint program. Now we're seeing your presenter view.
And the presenter view.
Yeah, so if you switch it to the other monitor.
All right, we'll try it again. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Yeah, like I said, they're always changing this technology up on us anyway. So.
How's that now?
All right, now we're seeing ways NRCS can help manage.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I put this slide on here, and not so that you would read the whole thing, but to show you that no matter how you want to manage your woodlands, there are ways that NRCS can help you manage them, whether it's invasive plant control, intermediate forest stand improvement stuff like crop tree releasing or commercial thinnings, all the way up to some habitat work or even the final harvest. There are ways NRCS can apply conservation practices, help the landowners apply them on their land. And so two of the main programs that help drive these practices for landowners, Environmental Quality Incentives Program, or EQIP, as a lot of people call it, and the Conservation Stewardship Program, or CSP. That's two of the most popular programs for putting a lot of these forest land practices in place. And so within EQIP, we have a lot of initiatives, and what I tell people to think about these as kind of focus areas that NRCS has to help divide these practices up amongst the landowners into certain, focal areas. So, of course, the Forest Land Initiative, Southeastern Kentucky Early Successional Habitat, or SAKESH, and then there's obviously some wildlife initiatives and a lot of crop and pasture land, which I know is beyond the scope of this, but that's a big history in NRCS is dealing with ag land producers. And so I want to talk just a little bit about that SAKESH initiative. That's a really popular initiative for southeastern counties, mainly because it helps promote young forests where we see a lot of mature, overstocked forests in this part of the state. We've found to put these young forests in place to kind of help drive some habitat and other forest management goals. And whether it's forest stand improvement, which you might hear as called timber stand improvement, patch clear cuts, and some other wildlife habitat things like watering holes or native warm season grasses. Moving over to CSP, or Conservation Stewardship Program, it is based more towards improving conservation that you've already put on your land, where it helps you maintain and manage those existing activities or allowing for you to enhance activities you've already put on the ground. And so all those are available to non-industrial private forest landowners and ag landowners. And I want to say that these programs are competitive program. You're being ranked against your fellow landowners, if you will, on the amount of conservation and resource concerns that you're addressing on your land. And so that's all part of it, is that we're providing technical assistance to landowners, and then also financial assistance from a cost share perspective to help conservation get put on the ground on these local farms and forests. So, Billy, I don't have that link for you right now, but to apply for
drop in the chat pod maybe a little bit later.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat. To apply for these, you could get on the NRCS Kentucky website and find a conservation programs application. And it doesn't matter which one you're applying for, it's all the same application. And people will be in contact with you about some goals, objectives for your property, and who to be in touch with, whether it's me as a forester or someone who's more focused with wildlife or so on and so forth. So I'm happy to share that in the chat box, and I will I know there's not time for questions, but I'm happy to chime in on anything on the chat or on some of the presentations later. So thank you.
Yeah, just drop that in the chat pod. And like I said, folks, if you'll have questions for Justin or Bill or any of our presenters, please just put them in the chat pod and we'll get to them. All right, Justin, I'm gonna kind of turn it over now to Miss April Wilhoit. April is the Fleming County Agriculture and Natural Resources Extension Agent. And April, I wanted you to speak a little bit about the county extension offices that are out there and how they can kind of work with woodland owners. I think a lot of times there may be the connotation that you only work with pure farmers, if you will, but it's really not the case. You'll work with any of the folks in the county. And, one thing I've been really trying to do in this position is to try to get our woodland owners to be more familiar with their county extension agents in those offices, because you all do so much great work at that local level, April. So thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and welcome everyone virtually to Fleming County. We're so happy to have everyone here in a sense. Yeah, so with Fleming County Extension Office, we're in a very diverse type of county and area, and I get questions, all sorts of different questions from row crops to forest, to ponds, to the sky's the limit. So no question is ever crazy. There is an extension office in every single county. So, please reach out if you ever have a question about anything. If we do not know the answer to it as your ag and natural resource agent, we have a plethora of knowledge backing us at the University of Kentucky. Everything is research-based information that we provide back. And, if we don't know the answer at UK, we also have a bunch of different organizations that we work with, and sometimes people reach out and it's not even, it's not something extension even deals with. It might be USDA, it may be something else, and I'm always happy to help point people in the right direction, because sometimes it's just what they need is to be pointed in the right direction. So we're always here, we're happy to help, and again, reach out to any extension agent across the state, because we're always here and happy to help. Also, I did have one little screen I wanted to share here with you all, if I can, just for a minute. I had the pleasure of, Billy, can you see my screen?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I had the pleasure of, when I was growing up here in Fleming County, attending with my elementary school a field trip to Hutton and Lloyd Tree Farm back in the late 80s, early 90s. And as you can see on my screen here, this little ornament was one of the ornaments I purchased for my mom, who is Paula, in 1993. So I was about 11 years old then, and it's a very fond memory of me. And obviously I remember it very well, because out of all the ornaments I've purchased for my mom over the years, this is the only one I really honestly can remember. And when I knew I was going to present on here today, I called her up. I was like, do you happen to still have that little penguin ornament that I had gotten there back many years ago? And I couldn't remember the year until I saw I had so nicely handwritten it, and it looks like white marker on the bottom of it. So I wanted to share that, because the tree farm does hold very fond memories of my childhood. And I do have a picture of a tree here as well, although it's looking a little rough, and that's because we probably did very poor site selection. I think it's been damaged in the years as well, probably through weed eaters, probably by me as well. But this was actually a Christmas tree we had, as a family, went and picked out and taken it home with the root ball still attached. And it was our Christmas tree one year, and we did plant it outside afterwards. So it's a great asset to Fleming County. And again, I'm pushing 40, and it's wonderful memories I can always think of as our families get older and pass on as well. So thank you, Dr. Lloyd, for having that opportunity here in Fleming County.
It's great to have customers like you, April. Really people who really identify with the farm. It's fabulous.
Yeah. Well, thank you all. And if anybody needs anything or has questions, again, I am always happy to assist and help where needed. So thank you all, and thank you all for having me on today.
Oh, April, thank you very much, and really appreciate you sharing that personal memory. And, I think there's probably a lot of other folks, Dr. Lloyd, that have similar memories. I know you all had a lot of customers over the years. And, I know taking my children when they were young to local Christmas tree farms and harvesting those trees, those are special memories for me as well. So that's a nice little feather I hope you'll take away from this, that you've really created a lot of fond memories for a lot of people over the years.
That's been one of the incentives for not letting any of it go. Anytime I considered whether I thought I ought to do something different. I always had a number of people who are saying, no, you can't do that.
Oh,
You know, there's too many people attached to this. So yeah,
Oh.
I like it as well.
all right. Well, great. All right. So, folks, we're going to kind of keep the show rolling. And in this next part of the show, we're going to start showing some of the videos that Dr. Muller has been working on and editing. Jacob is a new faculty member here in the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources. He had the unfortunate luck of starting this program, his new job, right in February. And as you all know, a lot's happened since February, but Jacob's just done an amazing job so far. And he brings a lot of expertise and enthusiasm to our department. So Jacob, so glad to have you on the team and have you helping with these videos that, you know, you and Dr. Lloyd have kind of put together for us.
Thanks, Billy. Yeah, it's been great being here in Kentucky, given the circumstances that I came in on. But just getting to go out and visit the Lloyd family Woodland Reserve and just seeing how active woodland owners can be out here, and the potential for management is really inspiring for me in my position to get out and work with other landowners. And so we got out about 5 or 6 weeks ago to the forest or the Lloyd family woodland, and that would have been the tour that we all would have gone on. And so we made a number of stops. It was Billy, myself, Dr. Lloyd, Doug was out there for a while, Doug McLaren, and April was with us for a while as well. And we got to go out and visit a bunch of these stands and see all the management activities that are going on. And there's a number of folks here today that can speak to a lot of those opportunities for other woodland owners to engage with and seek some assistance with some of these management practices. So definitely chime in, Justin, if you have any thoughts on any of these videos. But our first video is of an early ag site that was kind of naturally reforested, and it didn't necessarily come in as the healthiest of forests, as a lot of times they don't after some farms have been abandoned and kind of they're not the most natural or kind of have these natural ecological functions that they once had. So a lot of what Dr. Lloyd, was working on was kind of restoring that natural function of these historical forests. And so I think we can go ahead and share that unless Dr. Lloyd would like to add.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and share that and let me know if everything's okay here. Let me stop my video.
This is an area that is particularly germane for people who have farmland areas that have been growing back up, particularly since the end of the war. People abandoned the farms a lot of times, and farms that weren't very productive, and went to the war industry in Toledo, Cleveland. They left behind their property, and when they did, it just started growing back up with whatever the available species and seed sources, etc., were. In some cases, that could be invasive species. That was less so here. Here, what we were dealing with in this particular stand was red maple, and black gum trees. There's also some sugar maple in here. There's some poplar. There's an occasional oak, occasional hickory. But the question is how do you take an area like this and then try to get it to recover so that it's useful for the future? Of course, it has some wildlife value, as it is, but we have our organization set up so that the children, grandchildren to follow me, have committed to taking care of this. And so I want to leave it so that then it improves for them. So what we did here, under the guidance of the Division of Forestry, the district here, with Kevin Galloway and Floyd Willis marking trees in here, we went in here and we did some stump spraying on beech and red maple that were young enough for it. We also did girdling of larger trees and also of black gum, and then we used Roundup or garland in it, depending on the time of year, mostly garland as I recall. And so we'll walk in here and I'll show you some of that. So this field was largely just an abandoned agrarian field, and so what it came up in this particular area are black gums and red maples. There's a few hickories, a few oaks. A lot of the stuff is in the understory, but what you want to, and there's poplar, a lot of poplar trees in the understory. But in order to get them to prosper and come out, you have to get rid of the overstory and get rid of the trees that have very little value, at least in terms of the goals that we're trying to look for, which is to get back a stand more characteristic of the older days with oaks, hickories, and also to promote the wildlife, although some of the trees that were here promoted wildlife. Wildlife is driven by the botany. So if that's a concept that you're not familiar with, it's something that people can talk about. But what you have growing on the land drives what the animal species are going to be, because that's their food source and their protection source. So what we did here was we tried to get rid of a lot of the black gums and the maples, and we tried to protect the understory. So this is an example right here. Here's other example of what we do. I follow the marks that the forester leaves for me, and I put a ring around the bottom of the tree, a girdle, and then sprayed herbicide in it. And it's been effective on these trees. The bark is already sort of coming loose right here on this one. You can see it on these ones over here where the bark is coming loose, meaning the tree responded to the herbicide, and that's good. That's what we want. And now it lets all the understory then get the sunlight and then prosper by that. And some of the understory here is a young hickory that's right over there. There's an older hickory over there, which has primarily been left because it's a seed source. So even though it might not have desirable form, it has a lot of mass, a lot of seed. It's good for the wildlife and good for the and good for creating the stand we're looking for, even though it may never become a commercial timber tree 2 generations from now for my great-grandchildren. But you know, it's going to produce a seed source, and that's great. Right behind it is a young oak. It looks like a black oak from here. There's a young hickory right there. Here's an oak up here, which I believe is a black oak. I'd have to go look at it. And there's a few beech here in the understory. But the thing that you can really, here's a nice older oak in there up here. And typical of some of the old recovered land areas are some of these pines, more native pines, that we also had tried to get rid of. So in other places back here, if you, when you have a chance to turn around and look, this has got a lot of young poplar in it, and see how dense they are in here. So this is desirable because those will prosper now, and they create an excellent reestablishment tree. They're good for forestry. I mean, they're good for commercial purposes, but they also produce a lot of seed, and so the seed will spread around all over the area here, and it already has. You can see poplar in the stand up here. You can see it more in the stand down there, back over in here. And you just look at the tall trees overshadowing the smaller trees. It's these young stems. That's what we want to promote, is by getting rid of the undesirable overstory. And I think this is going to be work well worthwhile.
All right, nice job on the video, gentlemen. Anything y'all want to say about that? Or remind folks, if you all have questions, please put them in the chat pod. Again, we have Bill Knott with Kentucky Division of Forestry, an outstanding forester there, and also another forester with Justin Coffey representing NRCS. So if you've got any questions or anything y'all want to add to that.
Well, I might add that if you look at the sectional maps from 1979 are the ones that I have, and I'm sure I could get ones earlier. They still have a lot of the features on them from earlier times, like from the 40s and 50s, where buildings were located or where there were old county roads or things like that. And so you can look and see what was wooded at the time, because the wooded areas are green and the fields that existed at that time are actually, before that time, were left white. And indeed, that field that we were in, it's all area that on the edges had some wooded areas, but it was all basically open field at the time. Sometime before that map, it was carried over to that map in 1979. So it's documented not by just looking at the land, but also
Right,
by
right.
what exists on the sectional maps, that it was indeed an old agricultural field at one time.
Yeah, and as mentioned, there's certainly a lot of these across the state that could use a little TLC. All right. All right, you all want to go to the next video?
Yeah, let's continue on with our tour. And I think we're gonna stop at the next stand, which is a 12-year post clear cut stand. So kind of in that early stages of management. And we highlight some of those activities that Dr. Lloyd and his family have been working on in that stand. So we can probably go ahead and jump
All right.
right into that.
I'll go ahead and pull it up.
The history of this stand is that this field behind me was clear cut in 2008, 2009, that time frame. At the time, the decision to clear cut it was because it was an oak stand with some defects in it, like such as I like to get rid of, like fire burn and fencing, and some other problems of high grading. Even though it's an oak stand, you can still have badly formed stems that don't necessarily make as good a commercial timber as a good stand does. And of course, we had all the wildlife benefits like the mast and that type of thing. But I was commiserating about whether to cut or to not cut because we had a logger on the property at the time, and we decided to go ahead and cut. And the big reason was because the understory, when we walked into it that fall, was just full of young oak seedlings, white oak seedlings. And so that presented the capability for a great regeneration. And just to give you an example, when we first started undertaking this type of management 40 years ago, after the very first clear cut effort, the foresters came in and they did a count of the seedlings per acre. Of course, it was statistical plots that they were using, but they came up with 13,000 seedlings per acre. And the nice thing about that is that's just natural regeneration. It does not require that I went out and planted it, put anything in the ground, that I put any seedlings in the ground. Those are all just natural regeneration, which is a characteristic of the central hardwoods here. It turned out that 6,800 and some odd number of those were commercial species, oaks, different types of oaks, hickories, etc., poplars. So that would be typical of this area behind us as well. This particular area now is about 13 years old. The next stage of management for it will be a thinning. It's non-commercial thinning. It won't bring any money. It will be done when the stand is about 18 to 20 years old, maybe a little less. It depends on the trees, which ones turn out to be the more dominant. When the dominant trees begin to declare themselves and we can see which ones are going to prosper, then those are the ones that we want to focus on. And that will be the time that we clear the space around them, what is called crop tree management. And clear the space around them, give their crown room to expand and absorb energy, and it's less about the trees that might be encroaching on them around their trunk. It's more about what is encroaching on the crown, and try to release that. And so that will be a step that doesn't bring any revenue. It costs money, but it doesn't bring any revenue. However, the next step, which will be about 20 years after that, will likely have commercial timber in it. It will be marked, it will be thinned, it won't be very exclusive, but the goal is that 80 to 100 years from now, there'll be about 40 trees per acre, and they will all be high value trees. And you define value yourself. Oak, nuts, commercial timber, beauty, the things you're looking for, you can define that yourself as a private landowner. And we're looking for a combination of all those. So it won't be for me. This is 60 years at minimum away from harvest, maybe 80. So that'll be for my great-grandchildren. But that's okay.
Wondering, you mentioned 40 trees, and really what we're talking about is harvestable trees coming off of that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to think that you might start out on an acre with 10,000 seedlings or so and end up with just harvesting 40 at the end of that rotation.
Yeah, well, Bob Bauer was the one who made that count, so we'll see if he remembers it. But he was the one who came out a couple of years after we had done a clear cut on some property, and I think it would have been 83 or something like that, 83, 84. And they counted the species, they counted the seedlings statistically. They didn't go through and count a whole acre, but they took statistical plots and counted them, and then they came up with those numbers, and those have stuck in my mind ever since then. That was a good, for me, a great experience of being on the ground and actually seeing that the ground was what made the decision. When I saw those white oak seedlings in there and then presented it to the foresters, Pete Kabalik was really one of them, and to the other people at the time, and I said, it's got all this white oak in there. I think it's ripe for just doing a clear cut instead of maybe a seed tree. I can't think of the term right now, but anyway, yeah, it turned out to be good because there's a lot of oak saplings in that now.
Dr. Lloyd, we had a question come up in the chat pod. Could you talk more about the trees you're getting rid of and why?
Well, again, it's all based. First of all, you have to have your gold standard, and so I've declared what the gold standard for us is. The gold standard is that we want to get rid of trees that are a result of high grading. So high grading might have increased the species that had less value for wildlife or less value for commercial timber purposes. So that would help me choose species that I want to. If it's got fencing in it, if it's got old fireburn in it, then it may be a desirable species. But if that makes it an undesirable species, unless you're looking at it for a den tree or a snag or something like that, you're always making about a decision about every tree and how does it fit in with the goals. So the very first thing to do is to sort of define your goals. And in that regard, we're going to motivate toward oaks and hickories because they have mass and because they support so much of the wildlife that we have. And so we're going to motivate toward those. We're going to motivate away from red maple and the black gums. There's just not that much of a commercial market for those. They don't really go to high grade materials, and the black gum has wildlife value, but I have wildlife value in the other trees as well. And I can't get rid of all of them. You're still going to come up with a balanced approach. The other thing that would be nice is to be able to restore something that was more native to the forest when it was 250, 300 years ago when the settlers first came and the colonists first came. If we didn't do anything at all, if we all just suddenly disappeared, it would return to jungle in a couple or 300 years, So the trees will grow in the sidewalks in Kentucky. They'll grow in the little cracks in the road, they'll grow everywhere, and they would just take over again if we would let it happen. So it's idyllic to think that some of those native things would return. But of course, we've lost the American chestnut, and we've lost other things that were a huge part of the forest back then. But those are how we make our decisions. It's not trying to target a species. It's trying to see, does it match our goals or not match our goals? And you almost make a decision about every tree. That's the nice thing about doing this yourself. You're making a decision about every tree.
Yeah. I was going to say, Dr. Lloyd, I know you've got a lot of experience with this, but other landowners may not have that same experience. So that's where some of maybe our professionals can come in and kind of help them along the way so they're prepared. Justin, you want to add in?
Well, let me say
I just have something.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let me get to that. I still rely on the foresters heavily. I could not live without them. So yeah, okay. So I appreciate your compliment, but I couldn't do it alone. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just think it's worth noting, and I want to applaud your efforts for it, is that you looked at what the next stand will be as opposed to what will be coming off and be turning into wood products, when oftentimes that's what drives excuse me, a lot of the management decisions on what's coming off. No doubt that it helps and it provides money to do future management, but if you don't have the things in place in order for you to have a good, viable stand in the future, those wood products will go for naught. So I really applaud that effort.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate that video and then the next couple of videos that we're going to look at, and how they kind of show this process, and it's an investment of time and sometimes some monetary investments, and there's a lot of resources to help with those non-commercial type treatments, and so that was kind of a great example of how this process kind of starts and some of those initial entries that you need to make to kind of create a sustainable, long-lasting forest. And so this next video kind of takes that we jump ahead 10 years. We look at a stand that's about 20 years post clear cut. And so we're looking at a lot more intermediate treatments with those. And we alluded to the crop tree release or crop tree management. In this next video, I think does a really good job of highlighting those treatments to really manage for those 40 or so trees that we're targeting and start to move towards that. So I think, should we jump into the next video, Billy?
Yep, I'll go ahead and pull it up.
Okay.
This is a stand that was clear cut about 20 years ago. It has trees that have indicated their dominance. If you look at this white oak right here, you can see that its crown is up even with these other trees, but that it's being impinged upon by the other trees. So the desired treatment for this is to open up its crown. So this is called crop tree management. And this is an ideal tree to explain that, because you can see that there's another oak back here, a white oak. This is a white oak. It's got limbs that will probably drop off as it gets older, so it's a nice stem. And the trees that are bothering it are cherry trees. This one, and this one. So if you could look up at the crown like I am right now, you'd see that all of those are kind of pushing this one in. And if I can open those up, open up a lot of territory for this tree to be able to expand its crown, collect energy from the sun, and prosper. So I've already been through here once and did basal spraying. I'll show you that in a second. That's an important technique. I did that about 3 or 4 months ago, and I like that because that enables me to tell whether it was effective or not and whether I need to do more on my second pass. My first pass is with a backpack sprayer and a herbicide to spray around the base of the tree that needs to be taken out. And my next pass will be with a chainsaw and some herbicide that I will use on trees that tend to grow back quickly. Now, the cherries may or may not. Sometimes I spray the cherries, sometimes I don't. It just depends on how aggressive I want to be. But these I won't spray. I'll just ring them also, because if I drop a tree that big, it's going to fall into some areas and may negatively impact some growing things. So even though they're relatively small, I'll probably just girdle them a time or two and let them die. And that way when they fall, the limbs will just shed, and when the bowl comes down, it won't be a problem about taking out a lot of other trees. So this is a good example here of the type of management that a person can expect to do. So if I cut down these 3 trees, you will also see that there's going to be room for some seedlings to come up. Like right here is an oak seedling right there. So there'll be some room for that sort of thing to come up. In this stand there's a lot of poplar. and it will come up as well. So here's a crop tree, there's a crop tree, there's a crop tree, and those are all oaks. So what I want to do is I want to walk along through here just a little bit and show you how some of the other management comes together in this particular stand. So right over here is a tree that received basal spraying. Basal spraying is my first walk through this. Each stand I go through twice. So my first walk I have a backpack sprayer on, and this particular one has a herbicide chemical in it. The difference, the time of the year that you use those in the exact practice, but usually it's Garlon or Element 4, and then you find a tree like this particular one right here. So this is a red maple right here, and they tend to come up in clumps like this. It was probably from something having been cut initially 20 years ago. And what you do is you spray your chemical all around the base of it, and then it destroys the vascular system in the tree, and then the tree dies. Now, if you're questioning whether this is dead or not, you would look down here, and you can see the fungus is growing on the tree. You can also tell just partly by the way it feels, but the other thing that is useful sometimes is to look at the bark and see if the bark is starting to scale off. Like you might start, this is just a limb, but you can see it's starting to scale. And so this tree succumbed to the herbicide. The other thing that allows me to tell for sure is that the moss that is down here, which would normally be green and rather vibrant like that tree right over there, it's dead. And that means that the herbicide killed it also. So this tree is out of the picture. And it opens up a whole lot up there, and it also allows for crop trees that are impacted by it. Now this one's not necessarily impacted by it, a little bit so, but enough that I'm happy to see it come out. So this is a crop tree. I've got to deal with the things that are impacting it as well. This impacts it. This one I have to make a decision about. This is another oak. Do I leave that one or take it out? I'll decide when I'm here. This is a poplar tree right here. You'd say, well, maybe that looks okay, but maybe I should leave it. But if I look at it up here, it's got a scar up here. So that's going to become hollow. So I might as well get rid of that tree. So I will. And that's how I'll go through this area and pick the trees that I need to coppice and get rid of. So follow me on around over here, and you can see that here's another oak. This one is looks like a red oak or a black oak. I guess it's a black oak. And then there's this is a white oak over. No, wait a second. No, that's a red oak, isn't it? And so you can see how I will pick and choose, and this is called crop tree management. This one right here is another example. There's no point in maintaining this tree in my stand. It's never going to be of any great value. So I don't want to drop it on good trees, so I'll probably just run a couple girdles around it. That's enough to eliminate a poplar, but it will allow that tree to, or it will just open up this territory and give sunlight to these trees right here. And it's likely, I don't know, I may leave both of those. We'll see. The one definitely, because it's got a blue mark on it. And as I come on around here, you can also see a few other desirable things. This is probably from a deer a couple years ago. So there's some in the territory here. But these trees both have blue marks in them. And even though they're right beside each other, the forester decided that they should both stay. So that's fine. And also here is you can see how they make their decisions. If you can follow me right over here, this would be helpful too. This is how they make their decisions. And so they looked at these trees here, and they have a cherry tree, and a poplar tree, and they said, which one of those is the most likely to do the best in the future? And they choose this one. The reason they chose because this one has got a double stem up there, and this is less desirable than having a cherry. A cherry produces food for wildlife, and so they probably kept that in mind when they were choosing this tree. So, so that's the essence of what's going to happen in this stand here.
All right, another 20 years since that thing was harvested there. It's amazing some of the size on some of those trees, Dr. Lloyd.
Yeah, it amazes me too. I'm actually working in that area actively right now and making choices. Some of the ones that I said I would defray until later on. So I'm making those choices right now and over the next week or so to finish that area up. But it's turned out to be a nice area for wildlife. There must be some large sized deer. I've seen a lot of scrapes and some rubs on some 3 to 4 inch trees. So, you know, there's a big deer around, there's a big buck around when they're hitting trees like that. So it's nice. So I'll give them something to eat for the future, you know, some more nuts, some more, some things like that. So, so that area is inspirational because it's got a lot of variety. Some people, the person who asked about choosing trees before may ask the question, well, why were you choosing to get rid of cherry trees if they have a lot of wildlife potential in them? And so in that particular stand, a lot of the cherries have bad form. Some of them are beautiful and have nice form, but a lot of them have poor form. They're all twisted. They're all, they might have a fork, a double top. They might very well have some damage from wind damage or something like that. So the cherries, I'm choosing to eliminate cherries a lot of times just because of their not because of their species, but because of the quality that particular tree has.
I wanted to mention real quick, an agency that we do not have with us today, but is really an important resource for woodland owners, is the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources. So if you're a landowner with a primary interest in wildlife, just want to let you know that there's a whole nother group out there that can work with you and come out and meet with you on your property. So just to let you know, and we all work together, we really do here, whether it's NRCS or the Division of Forestry or Fish and Wildlife or UK, we all try to work together to help make sure that landowners achieve their objectives. And I think you brought up a good point, Dr. Lloyd, earlier about, you know, the management that we recommend as foresters and professionals is really driven largely by the objectives of the landowner.
Yep, I was going to say the exact same thing, Billy. That's just a really good reminder. These videos and what Dr. Lloyd just said is that all these actions are driven by our management objectives, and that's why it's so important to really take the time to think through those and get a management plan set up for your woodland, and think about the values that you have for that particular piece of land, and then how to get to those. And so we can continue on for the sake of time. I think we're getting close. So this next video is getting close to a commercial harvest. So we're kind of reaching past that point where we've selected trees, and Dr. Lloyd will walk through kind of the process in thinking about this commercial harvest or this commercial thinning as these trees become valuable or reach a valuable size. So I think we can jump into that.
This area is different than the ones we've looked at before. We started with an area that was the end goal, what's going to look like 60 or 80 years from now. We started with areas that are at the very beginning where they're just recently clear cut, and they're coming back up with fair to great densities in oak. And then we looked at an area that was about 17, 18 years old, maybe 20, where it's getting its very first thinning to try and select the crop trees, what will be managed for crop trees. This is an area that has already had crop tree management done. It was started on it about 10 years ago. It was clear cut about 30 years ago in the 1990 time frame, and then it had the first thinning to pick out crop trees. This area is dense in oak, mostly chestnut oaks, but also some white oaks and some red oaks, some black oaks. This is exemplary of the area. So it's hard for me to believe it, but this tree right here, which looks like it's 12 to 14 inches in diameter, is already 30 years. Is only 30 years old. These other trees over here are oaks. There's a few, like here, a red maple in the understory, red maple. There's a few beeches in the understory. There's a few cherries which are poorly formed. I see one over here. There's going to be some other cherries that are like that. I see some multi-stem stuff down there, which I imagine is probably red maple. And that sort of stuff will be addressed when we come to the first commercial thinning. So you can see that it seems possible that there will be a first commercial thinning in 30 years, or I'm sorry, in about another 10 years. We can take trees out of here that will have value at the sawmill. These ones definitely, although we'll take those ones, but definitely there will be some that will have value. That one would likely come out if we can, because it's a double stem and has little value for the future. So you can see that we'll thin this. I don't know, what would you think, Billy? 1,000 feet an acre or something like that might come out 10 years from now. And so the current prices, after the logger shares out, that might bring, I don't know, a couple $100, depending on the species. You know, with the oaks and things like that, I would expect a couple $100 might be sort of a going price after the logger after the logger's expenses come out. So I also see cherries. I see red oaks. I see white oaks right there. And this over here looks good. It looks quite uniform. 12 inches, 10 to 12 inches, maybe some less than 10 inches, some 12. But there's going to be a fair amount of material there that can be thinned out. And if I look up at the crowns and see, yeah, I can see that there's going to be room for trying to thin the crown area somewhat. I don't think we're there yet, but we will be. And so that's what this stand is about, and it's exemplary of the types of stands that you would be dealing with if you start clear cuts. Then 30 years downstream, this might be the type of stand you have. We have several of these around the farm. It's just that they're not as easy to get to as this one. This one is walking distance from the house. But that whole area on the ridge behind you over there that you can't see, it's 40 acres. 40 acres of this. It was cut even a little bit earlier. It was clear cut in 82, 83.
All right, gentlemen, I think that's all the videos we have. Are there some kind of things you want to kind of bring it on home with?
Well, I want to appreciate Jacob a lot. He's done an excellent job in putting this together, so thank you. There were some other videos made. One other video too that we looked at that I referred to, and this one was a stand. One of the management objectives for the coming generation is to have old growth forest, which by definition I think is 150 years or older. When we purchased the property and bored a few of the trees in some of those and some of the areas down the bottom, they were already 110, 120 years old. So we've got some old growth now. We've thinned it out some, but leaving older trees. And they have Jacob has some video of that too, but not the time to show it. But that's the end goal, to get trees. And that stand happens to be almost all white oak. It's almost all white oaks and oaks and such. So that's the end goal that you want to get to, is to whatever that final management objective is. And for us, it's old growth forest in a good portion of the farm. So that's my comment.
Jacob, anything?
I really appreciate you inviting us out there, and I think we all had a great day touring around, and there is a bunch of additional footage that we're putting together, and we'll release that. And we have a video that aired previously on Dr. Lloyd's Christmas tree farm, and so we've got a bunch of material that you'll definitely have access to.
Yeah, and we'll let everybody know when those are available. But you know, Dr. Lloyd, thank you again so much for all of your work to help this virtual field day happen, but also all the work you and the family have done over the many years just to give us something to look at and to celebrate. So a huge congratulations to you and the whole family for this honor.
Well, thank you, Billy, but it takes the whole community. You guys are a big part of it. Everybody that's on those partner organizations and all of you guys. So thank you too.
All right. And Jacob, thanks so much for your work on those videos. Appreciate it very much. All right, to keep the program rolling, I'm going to bring up the current chairman of the Kentucky Tree Farm Committee, and you saw him earlier today. You know, Doug, really glad to have you with us. Also have a couple other representatives that I introduced at the beginning, Mr. Bob Bauer and Miss Pam Snyder. They all serve in the executive committee of the Kentucky Tree Farm Committee. So a big thanks to you all for, you know, helping us steer the committee. I've been a part of the Kentucky Tree Farm Committee for a long time now, and you all were there when I got there. So thank you all for all that you've done and your leadership and guidance for the Kentucky Tree Farm Committee.
Thank you. Thank you, and welcome. On behalf of the 650 certified tree farmers here in the state of Kentucky, we welcome you, and we certainly applaud Dr. Lloyd on the work that he has done throughout the years. I wanted to define the tree farming program, and Bill Knott at the very beginning mentioned something I'm going to add into the definition. And the tree farming program, it's a sign of completing the correct steps toward a woodland management objective. And not only doing it, but it has to be done by some professional with guidance. So we appreciate that. And also, I wanted to mention the sign itself. As you drive across everywhere in the United States, you can see these tree farm signs, the green and white signs. There's going to be 4 activities that actually are involved in tree farming, and that is water, recreation, wildlife, as well as the woodland management. All of these things can be incorporated into a management plan done by that professional. Long-term, it's a long-term, here in the state of Kentucky especially, it's a very long-term rewarding activity to be involved in woodland management. And it takes a lot of people to be involved, and as Dr. Lloyd has mentioned, his entire family is involved in this, because it does take a long time to do this. So there's a legacy concept involved here. And I certainly appreciate all the work that is being done by the woodland owners here in the state of Kentucky. And what I wanted to do was turn the program. I am the chair, but 2 other people, Pam and Bob, are the ones that actively do a lot of work throughout the state. Pam being dealing with the professional foresters, and Bob dealing with the forest industries. So I wanted to turn the program over to them. But again, we certainly appreciate all those people that are involved in looking at this video today, and again applauding Dr. Lloyd, plus the other 649 certified tree farmers here in the state of Kentucky that are doing so much. So thank you, and I'll let Pam and Bob.
Good afternoon, everyone, and congratulations again, Dr. Lloyd, for your winning the Tree Farmer of the Year. A little bit about the American Tree Farm System. It requires a landowner to have a forest management plan or a forest stewardship plan, but they also have to follow certain performance measures and standards to the certification program. But one thing that the American Tree Farm program is to landowners, it is free. Landowners can join. They have to have at least 10 acres of woodlands that they're managing. Dr. Lloyd is the state level winner of the Tree Farm System. He will go on to compete eventually at a regional level and a national level within the American Tree Farm System. But the system also depends on a variety of foresters, not just the Division of Forestry, but also forest industry foresters and consultant foresters too, to do the inspections that are required the landowners within the Kentucky Tree Farm program. So again, I just wanted to provide a little feedback, a little bit more about the program. The one thing that if you are enrolled in the Tree Farm program, it is a certification program, which landowners then can sell their wood products coming off of their properties to primary and secondary wood industries. And I think that's a good lead in for Bob at this point to pick up the descriptions.
Thanks, Pam. Yeah, as Pam said, the program does certify the woodlands, and that's important to certain members in the industry, but it shows there's good management going on, and that's sort of a moving target. But it's an excellent program. Obviously, if you have any kind of interest, the easiest way is to reach out to your forester. Of course, we have a Tree Farm website. The KFIA website has information on there. So, that's easy to do. And as far as the program, I would also like to thank Dr. Lloyd for all his hard work, and Billy for saying that I've been on the committee for many years, longer than him. And it is tough when you look at it. A great thing about being a forester is to look at those sites that Dr. Lloyd's at and think that, maybe I had a hand in helping those trees to get to where they are. But then when he said it was a 40-year-old clear cut, it made me feel a little older, of course. but still, it's it's really heartwarming to be able to see landowners that have done that kind of work, and the things that Dr. Lloyd's done over the years is wonderful. And that's what helps support our industry. Obviously, all that material comes off of private landowners, so it's very important economically and everything else to the industry. And just quickly, a little about Kentucky Forest Industries Association. We sponsor the Tree Farm program, but we do have some industry people on the committee that you see: Pam, Billy, Doug, all these other people. So it's all the Ford Woodland Owners Association, all the partners that are involved in that, and a number of tree farmers that serve on that committee. So we certainly hear that voice also. But it's a good partnership to get everybody to improve management and try to support any programs that we have that come up and work together. So it's been a great way to keep us all together. And as Pam has said, we do this every year. So if you're doing a lot of work, we encourage you to let your forester know if you're interested. Those nominations come from throughout the state. The committee reviews those, narrows them down, goes out and visits them. We also do a logger of the year, the same type of thing. And again, we currently have a person in the state that's a regional finalist that could be up for National Tree Farmer of the Year next year. They're one of the two regional finalists. There's 4 regions. So there's a lot of good things going on in the state in management. And like I said, if you have any interest in Tree Farm, get a hold of your forester or let us know, Billy included, and glad to get you in the program. And it keeps you in touch with your foresters every 5 years at least, often more times than that, and it keeps you in the loop, and also you get a lot of good information out. So appreciate your support, Dr. Lloyd.
That goes both ways. Appreciate yours also.
Hey, I always like to say teamwork makes the dream work, right? And it is all of us working together for a kind of common objective. So excellent. Thank you all so much for all your service to the committee here in the state. I really appreciate that. All right, folks, so we're going to try to wrap this up right now. We've been at it about an hour and a half. I will ask if there's any kind of closing remarks from anyone, anything that was burning, Dr. Lloyd, that we didn't get across that you'd like to say before we wrap it up.
No, I think you covered everything. It's been very, very grateful you did the program.
Well, it's been great. You gave us a lot to work with, that's for sure.
Well, you can always, I'm not adverse to people requesting chances to come and take a look. There's other people who are doing good work in the state as well, so I'm sure there's plenty of sites available. But if I can be helpful to somebody who's just investigating this and wants to see what it looks like on the ground, who wants to kind of make some decisions about their own assets, their own property, I'm more than happy. Just get in touch with me. You can I think Billy will have that information if you want to approach him
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, just reach out to me and I can make those connections for you. You should be able to reach us pretty readily. All right. Well, Jacob, I know you and I wanted to say a few. Oh, Doug, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to mention it. It may have been mentioned several times throughout the videos and introductions, but Dr. Lloyd's farm is in Fleming County, which is in the northeastern section of the state, very close to Moorhead. So it gives a regional indication as to where anybody would have to drive to go and see it. But I know that he's very welcoming to let people come and visit.
Yes, thank you. All right. Anybody else? All right. All right, Jacob, let's bring it on home then.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure to be a part of this and get to know Dr. Lloyd as well as the Tree Farm Committee and get to understand this this program a little better. It's something that has been new to me, and it's so exciting to see how engaged and active these managers are, and so these woodland owners are. And so I think with that, there's plenty of resources. I don't know if we want to share some in the chat pod, but the treefarmsystem.org and others are great kind of starting off points to gather more information about if you're thinking about joining the tree farm and getting some additional resources and a forester out there to work with you.
Yeah, and along those lines, as Jacob mentioned, some of the resources we were able to hear out of the department to work with a lot of the partners here in the state to put together a virtual woodland owner short course. So I gave you a link to that. So you can see videos of different forest management practices across the state. There's videos of the partners out there. We have a bunch of recorded presentations on different kind of wildlife and forest management. So if you're interested, please check that out in the chat pod there. We did have a question come across. Do beech trees have value? And I think value's in the eye of the beholder. So, you know, it depends on what your objectives are, whether the beech trees have value. Certainly from a commercial standpoint, they may not be the most valuable, but there is some markets for them. Anybody else want to chime in on that real quick?
Yeah, Billy, I mean, they're used for a number of products, not the highest, but there is a company in Corbin that specifically uses beech, and they're making, as you know, popsicle sticks, that kind of thing. So there's a pretty good demand for that. They're looking for beech logs all over the state. So there's a pretty good demand for that.
But they're also an excellent wildlife tree too. So it gets back to what your management goals are for your property.
All right. Well, folks, again, a big thanks to all of our panelists that have been on here. Jacob, again, thanks for all your work on putting these video segments together. And Dr. Lloyd, again, a final thank you to you and the family for all the amazing work that you all have done. And hopefully we've inspired some other people to take care of their woodlands as well. And please know you're not alone. There's a lot of people out there that want to help you and support you, whether it's technical or financial support. Reach out to us and we will try to help you make your woodlands as healthy and productive as they can be.
Congratulations to you and your family, Dr. Lloyd.
Oh, thank you.